Ahoy everyone and welcome back once again to I Like Watches. In today's video I've got a gorgeous looking GMT diver for you. I have featured this watch on my channel a little while ago, but when I was looking at new releases on AliExpress recently I saw that they had just launched this new version of this watch and I just thought it looks incredible. The colours really caught my eye. So I reached out to them and they said, yeah, sure, we'd love to send you this watch to review. And now that it's here, the thing that is sort of stealing the show is actually the bracelet. Why, I hear you ask, why is the bracelet so special? Well, normally bracelets that look like this, they're made of 3 links. Sometimes they're just made of 1 link and they are machined to look like 3 or 5 links. And then they will polish a very small section of the bracelet and well, it can look a bit cheap sometimes. The more expensive watches that have bracelets that look like this tend to have 5 separate links that will all be individually brushed or polished. They then all come together to make a single link and they just look super crisp, super defined. And that's how they've made it. And that was a real surprise to me. Yeah, the divide between those thin polished links and the other brushed elements on the bracelet, super crisp, really crisp, because well, they are actually completely separate links. And I think that production method is well likely to cost quite a bit more than doing it the sort of cheap way. So yeah, I really was not expecting that on this watch. One thing I will say though is I wish they'd continued those polished accents onto the end links. The end links are a bit different, aren't they? So that's a bit of a shame, but yeah, I'm not going to knock them for that too much because the actual bracelet is lovely. So yeah, I was expecting this watch to turn up and for me to really be focusing on the bezel insert, the dial, the applied indexes, the hands. Those colours are incredible, but yeah, I was really quite taken back by the bracelet. The clasp is okay, it's quite thick, it's quite chunky, it's got an on-the-fly adjustment system. It's also got 3 micro adjustments. It's milled on the inside. The outer shell is pressed, no doubt, but it's very substantial, well engineered, quite chunky. In fact, the whole watch is quite chunky. They tend to produce slightly chunkier or heavier than average watches. That's not ideal for me. I do tend to prefer slightly smaller, lighter 200-meter water-resistant divers. I know this isn't a dive watch, it's a dive-style GMT, but still it's a 300-meter sort of dive-style watch, and yeah, that means it's quite chunky, but that's going to suit quite a few of you, I think, and that's what they tend to produce, so I'm not going to give them too much of a hard time about it. Right, let's have a look at the rest of the watch. NH34 powered GMT, 316L stainless steel, 300 meters of water resistance, screw down case back, screw down crown. The bezel, it's a GMT watch, it's got a GMT bezel insert. It should be a 24-click bidirectional bezel action. It's not, it's unidirectional. I'm guessing because they've taken this case from maybe a dive watch. It's not a biggie, it's just a small detail, but yeah, if it's a true GMT or if you want to use it as a GMT, I think it would be better to have the proper bezel action. The bezel insert looks like it should be sapphire, shouldn't it? I've tested it, it's not. The crystal covering the dial is domed sapphire crystal with blue AR coating. But yeah, the bezel insert isn't. And the unidirectional bezel action, it's not the best, it's not the worst by any means. Let's see how many clicks. 120 click unidirectional bezel. Have a listen. Yeah, it's okay, a little bit of back play, but the alignment is, yeah, pretty good. I do like the colours on the bezel insert and the colours that they've used on the dial. It's a sort of fading dial, fume dial, and yeah, those applied indexes and hands as well. Rose gold, heavily brushed hands, reflective, polished, applied indices, so they've used a mix of finishing on the dial. Yeah, that's okay, I think. And when it all comes together, I think it looks pretty good. A date window at the 4:30-ish position. I do like small, round date windows, although because there's 31 days on a date wheel, it doesn't really work with a watch, does it? It sort of sits off center between the 4 and 5, so I do tend to prefer date windows to be at the 3 or the 6, but still I like that sort of small framed circle. NH34 of course inside this watch, so 21,600 beats per hour, hacks, hand winds. You're very familiar with that movement by now surely, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. The overall look of the watch, I think it looks pretty good, doesn't it? The bracelet is gorgeous. I love the colours that they've used. The proportions are really, really good. The case shape, the dial design, I mean, it is just a really good looking C-Star GMT, and I think this is definitely the best colour combination that they've used for this particular watch. I'm thrilled to have gotten it in, to be honest, because yeah, that bracelet really has taken me by surprise. You just don't usually see bracelets made like that on affordable watches like this, so the bracelet alone was a good enough reason to get it in, I think. Now, before I wrap it up, let me just quickly talk about money on their website, because they do sell these watches on a website. £400. It's one of those brands, sadly, that sort of lists their watches quite high on their website and then generally offers 40% off, but on the AliExpress official store you'll find a much more reasonable day-to-day price, and then they will discount their watches a little bit more during the AliExpress sales. So if you're interested in their watches, you've got a couple of options, websites and AliExpress, and I think the prices for their watches are generally very, very good if you take into account the discounts, of course. Right, guys, I've told you what I think. Now it's time for you guys to tell me what you think. I look forward to reading your comments, and as always, a massive thank you from me to you for watching. I do appreciate it. Yeah, take care, guys. You'll see me again very, very soon.